Entrepreneurship is a mindset, and on the Entrepreneur's Blueprint, we'll be dissecting this mindset, the successes, the struggles, and even the failures of entrepreneurs to help with your own entrepreneurial journey. I'm your host, Justin Castelli, and I'm the founder of RLS Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor in Fishers, Indiana. In some of these episodes, we'll cover various financial planning, investment, and business planning topics. This information should be considered educational and not considered advice or a recommendation. You should consult your financial advisor or tax professional regarding your personal situation. And now that that's out of the way, let's get to the latest episode of the Entrepreneur's Blueprint. What I wanted to do in this first episode was to give some insight on what to expect from this podcast going forward. So why did I start it and what will you be hearing as you listen? And then to kick off the first episode with my own story and to answer the same questions I'll have all of my guests answer as well. So kind of to do an interview on myself, but kind of without the actual back and forth interview. I'll just tell you my story. So what to expect? The goal for this podcast is to highlight entrepreneurs, and I will define what entrepreneurship is and what I view as an entrepreneurial spirit on my blog and videos and other areas, and it'll come across in the podcast as well. But I want to highlight entrepreneurs, have them come on and share their why, share their story, and give other entrepreneurs just some general information. Maybe you're a listener and you are wanting to start your own business, or you have that entrepreneurial idea but haven't got to start, and you can listen to other people who have been down the road before and can share their insights, and you can learn from their successes and their failures. We're going to celebrate it all. So I want to allow entrepreneurs to share their story, promote their businesses at the same time. Use this on their platforms to share their story and hopefully grow their businesses by getting in front of a new audience. And then I also want to combine those conversations with other business owners and entrepreneurs with some practical episodes. Have on marketing people and branding specialists, have on a CPA and an attorney to talk about things that business owners and entrepreneurs need to be aware of and need to know when it comes to running and growing a successful business. So it's going to be a combination of the two. I kind of envision it being a few interviews broken up with a few podcast episodes that are not interviews. So it's not the same thing every time. And I imagine that this will evolve over time as I meet more great people and get new ideas. This podcast will stay true to being entrepreneurial in that we're going to try different things, and sometimes they'll work, sometimes they'll fail. But I really want to bring good information to all of you out there interested in this type of stuff. So that is what to expect. Summary is the goal is to create another resource for entrepreneurs to learn, to share ideas, and to promote each other and have a good time along the way. So let's go ahead and dive right into the first actual episode. And I'm going to tell my story of my firm and how I started my business and why I have my own business and kind of the journey that I'm taking as an entrepreneur. And I do believe it is a journey, another topic you'll hear me speak about more in the future. But let's start from square one as if I was running this as an interview. My name is Justin Castelli. I am the founder of RLS Wealth Management, which is a registered investment advisory firm based out of Fishers, Indiana. If you're not familiar with that term, a registered investment advisor is just a financial planning firm that does investment management. It is on the fee-only side of the business, meaning that the compensation to my business comes directly from my clients. I don't make any commissions, don't sell any product. It's all based off of advice and the investment management that comes with it from off the planning side. So there are a lot of views on the best way for a financial advisor to structure his firm. That is not the conversation for this podcast. We can talk about that over on my other podcast, All About Your Benjamins. So that is my firm. I have been in the financial planning world since I graduated college in 2004. I took the summer off and was down in Bloomington, Indiana with my wife as she finished up an extra semester at Indiana University. And then when I came home after that little bit of time off, kind of networked and found my way into the financial planning world. So the quick of my story is I started that fall at a firm that specialized in selling insurance, but they used the moniker of being a financial advisor. And after being there about a year, I realized that was not the direction that I wanted to go. I did, in fact, want to be a financial advisor, but I did not want to base the foundation of my recommendations on life insurance. Again, a conversation for another podcast. But that was the first firm. I left there and went to work at a bank, which I absolutely hated. I did not like being confined to an office. I did not like having a glass wall separating me from my manager. And not that I wasn't going to be working hard, but I just didn't like feeling like I was crammed and in a glass fishbowl just being watched all the time. But it served its purpose. During that year, my wife, Angela, I call her Ange. You'll hear that throughout the podcast episodes. Ange and I got engaged. We started building our first home. So it was a steady paycheck, got some experience, got back from my honeymoon, and then I started at a financial planning firm that specialized in 403Bs, which are retirement plans for teachers. So for about 7 years of my career, I worked at a 403B company, worked with teachers, provided financial planning and advice, had 9 school corporations I was responsible for, and from that kind of carved out what I viewed to be my book of business. Clients that worked with me saw me as their financial advisor, and that would one day be the foundation of me starting my own firm. As I tell this story, I would not have characterized myself as an entrepreneur up to this point of the story. So at the 403B company, enjoyed my job, enjoyed being a financial advisor, wanted to move to the independent side of the world because I did not want to feel like there was a corporation trying to guide me into what I was going to do for my clients. I wanted to have freedom to do what I wanted to do and always be able to do what was right for my clients. And I did that while I was there, but there's still pressures when you work for a bigger corporation. So I was actually had a game plan to leave and go start my firm, and in the last minute decided to deviate from my plan and went to go work for another advisor who had an independent firm in Indianapolis. There was the opportunity potentially to be the succession plan, so to eventually buy this financial advisor out, take over her practice, which was a good practice, and continue on. Was there for 2 years and realized that just was not the right path for me, that there were things I wanted to do in my firm. I wanted to work with young professionals, which did not fit that business model of where I was at. I didn't want to have to turn away people that I thought were good clients because of not having enough assets to meet a firm minimum. And fortunate for me, the owner of the firm and I kind of agreed on mutual terms that it was best for me to go do my own thing and start my own firm. So in May of 2015, which it's crazy to think that it's almost going to be my 4-year anniversary from leaving, I left and started the process of registering. At the time, it was RL Wealth Management. So the name for the firm, RLS, is after Roman, Leo, and Silas, my 3 boys. When I started the firm, Silas was not around, so it was just RL Wealth Management. So started the process, and then July 3rd, I'll never forget it, I was in Pennsylvania on vacation for the 4th of July, visiting family. July 3rd, I opened up an email from the state of Indiana saying that my registration had been approved and I was okayed to go to business. So I called everybody from Pennsylvania, told them I'd be back in 2 days, and that's when I would see everybody and start the process of transitioning into the new firm and getting things going. And I think any entrepreneur remembers that first day of business. And for me, that first day of business really was getting the okay from Indiana and calling my clients to say, hey, let's roll. Everything is good to go, which was very exciting. So like I said, I remember that like it was yesterday. So started my firm, and I was excited to start my own firm. And I think this is where the entrepreneur in me began, but I really didn't embrace it until recently, as I'll share with you in a little bit. And I say it began because one of the things I did with my firm when I started out was introduce a subscription model. Now, I didn't introduce it in the fact that I was the first advisor to do it, but I structured a relationship geared towards young professionals where I charged a monthly subscription fee. So instead of being based off of assets under management or selling product, there's just a flat fee every month. Financial planning was provided, regular reviews, contact throughout the year, and then I had my traditional relationship with my retiree clients that's based off of assets under management. But the subscription model, I started from scratch, had no clients in it, and that was really one of the reasons I wanted to start my firm, was to have that flexibility and go down that avenue of offering this new business model, because I thought it was something that would be more prominent in the future. So I did that. And as I mentioned, we're coming up on almost 4 years of leaving, which will then soon be 4 years of existence. And I am happier than I've ever been. Going back when I was at the last firm, if you would have asked me if I was happy, I probably would have said yes. And I definitely wouldn't have said I was unhappy. But it wasn't until I got out on my own and was able to do things my way and do the things I wanted to do that I realized how unhappy I was. And some of those things are just having a better balance between work and family life. Family is very important to me, and I don't want to miss anything. So I am fortunate to be in a position where I can structure my schedule and structure my business to allow me to go to all the school events and not miss games, or if I do, very rarely miss anything and work around that. And I'm also very fortunate to have clients that are supportive of that and almost, I would say, want me to be able to do that. So as long as everything's good with them, they are very happy to allow me to see my family and be with my family rather than expecting me to be working all the time. So my story for my business side of things is have always been in the business, thought there was a better way, and decided I was going to go make that better way happen. And that's, again, where the entrepreneur in me started. Now, fast forward to closer to now, I would say in the last year and a half is really when I started to see visions of different ideas and different ways of doing things and businesses to try and really going after it. So that's where I say the last year and a half is really where this entrepreneur in me came out. And it's weird to say that. I think entrepreneur is a term that's used way too much, and it's kind of a buzzword and a cool thing to be. But at the end of the day, the definition that I have for an entrepreneur, being a risk taker, seeing ideas, seeing problems and finding solutions to get there, and thinking outside of the box and trying to be ahead of the game, that's kind of where I've evolved to. And I really do enjoy it. So the entrepreneur in me has expanded my firm, not to a new business or anything yet, but from a standpoint of, I really think it started from creating content. So I knew that I wanted to blog, which is another reason to go out on my own and be on the independent side, is to be able to have a blog to help educate and tell my story and hopefully grow my business, if I'm being honest. I put the information out there. Right now, I have no calls to action on All About Your Benjamins. I really just put it out there to educate and keep myself sharp, and then hope that people like what I have to say and then pick up the phone and call me. So I wanted to do that, and I started writing and really enjoyed that, and that evolved into doing video, and video evolved into doing podcast, and now podcasting has evolved into doing voice on the Amazon devices. And as I see these new ways to communicate with clients, I really want to tackle those and bring that into what I'm doing. And that is something that more advisors are doing, but on the grand scheme of things in the financial planning world and financial services, not very many people are doing that. And I plan to continue to evolve that and be able to do more. So if I share with you all of those things that I'm doing, I have a blog called All About Your Benjamins, where I blog more about personal finance and also blog towards the advisor community. I also have a podcast by that name, All About Your Benjamins, the podcast. Same thing, kind of geared more towards personal finance, investing, and the advisor community. I have a podcast with a friend of mine that we run every Sunday night called Reversion to the Mean, and that's really just kind of for fun. I have a YouTube channel for RLS Wealth Management, which you'll be able to find all of the videos for the podcast on the Entrepreneur's Blueprint will be posted on RLS Wealth Management's YouTube. But I have YouTube where I have various types of videos that I do to help educate, tell my story, let people see me, and have fun. And I'm crafting that YouTube channel to not only be just my content, but trying to curate other financial, entrepreneurial, motivational videos as well. So you can come to that YouTube channel and learn from me if you want, but also find other people's content there. So it's not just all about me. It's trying to provide a resource for people who want to come to that. And then I just recently started an Amazon skill. Not very consistent to it yet, so still figuring it out and how I want to run it. But that's part of, I think, being an entrepreneur is sometimes you get into it before you're ready and you figure it out on the go. And I think that's okay because you figure it out, and by the time it's really become mainstream, it'll be perfected. You'll be doing it for a while. You'll be an expert. And then at that point, you're on to the next thing, whatever that might be. So those are kind of the first sprinklings of entrepreneurship that I brought to my firm. So instead of just being your traditional financial planning and investment management firm, growing by referrals, doing cold calls, doing seminars, I chose to really focus on my client relationships, provide a different type of relationship, and then create content to tell my story and grow my business. So it's a little bit of a different way of growing. And I'm seeing other firms have extreme success with it, and I'm seeing it with myself, but seeing those bigger firms growing fast gives me the confidence that I'm doing something right and I'm heading in the right direction. So kind of follow their lead and then put my own spin on it. if I look to the future of where I want this business to go, where I want my firm to go, I want to continue for the foundation of it to be financial planning and investment management. But as I see these other opportunities presenting themselves, I want to structure my business to allow me to try other businesses that complement what it is that I'm doing. So I've never publicly shared this. So this is a first time I'm putting this out there, and which I don't mind doing because I'm doing things to pursue this, and also putting it out there also, kind of forces me to go do it. But over the last year and a half, I've had the opportunity to talk with, it's got to be close to 100 at least, financial advisors about breaking away or blogging and content creation and social media and that whole area that I've grown to love. And I think there's an opportunity for me to be able to do some consulting with financial advisors, not make that the core business, but maybe take on a new advisor every couple months and help them figure their path and create their story and craft their message and figure out what's the best way for them to tell that story and kind of get them going towards their content creation journey. And then from that, another idea that has come up is potentially a tech-related company where advisors could upload their content, and with a business partner who happens to be my brother-in-law, we could take care of the distribution of the content. So put it out there, use the analytics to run it, make suggestions, do reviews, and show you what's working, what's not working, when you should post, and help you really craft the content to maximize it based off of my brother-in-law's skills and mine. So that's another idea that I have out there that I'm just now starting to test. The tricky thing is, while I want to do those will never replace my financial planning business and what I love most in my clients. So it's treading that fine line of not sacrificing the business that I've built to this date and that I really love the most, and trying to add this other interest to the mix without sacrificing the service. So part of this journey is going to be growing my firm to be able to keep the service level where it needs to be, allow me to spend my time with the clients, creating content to grow, but also have the time to do the other things. So that's keeping clients at a manageable number of clients for the staff that I have, not overcommitting myself, and also not taking on too many on these side businesses that I might do. So that's one thing. I also have a desire to speak, and eventually would love to get paid to speak. Now, whether that happens or not, who knows? Don't know if anybody out there thinks I have enough good things to say to where they might want to pay me, but I think there's an opportunity to take this whole conversation about branding and marketing to advisory firms out there that are not doing it, and try to show them the light and explain to them why, and maybe kind of walk their advisors through a process of getting them just started. So not quite the hands-on approach that I would take on the consulting business, but a higher level. And at the end of the day, I would leave, and every advisor would have a game plan to get things started, which would leave them up to do it. But that would be pretty cool. So whether or not that happens, I don't know, but I'm seeing the opportunity and going back to this new entrepreneurial spirit that I have. I want to explore it. And again, I want to explore it, but not at the cost of RLS Wealth Management's success and level of service. And I think I can do that just with having good systems in place. So that is where I see this entrepreneurial journey continuing and moving forward. And as I go down those paths, and if they don't work, I'll shut them down. It doesn't mean they have to become, but if I can make it all work, I think that'd be fun, because I have a desire to kind of coach and help people. And one way to do that would be grow my firm by taking on more advisors. But that brings on other responsibilities that I'm not sure I really want to tackle at this time. Or I could help coach somebody find their voice, develop some content, have a 6-month relationship doing that, or however long it might end up being, and then they're off on the way and I can help somebody new. I think that fits my desire to coach, but not add on responsibilities that I don't really want to have. So that is, that's my entrepreneur story to this point. I didn't grow up an entrepreneur. I started my own business. Even at that point, I wouldn't have said I was entrepreneurial. It's really been as I've gotten into creating content, blogging, social media, meeting more people, learning more stories, and then all of a sudden seeing these opportunities and trying to find a way to make those happen, that I would say that I have become an entrepreneur. And then starting this podcast is another way of expressing that. And then the final way I see my firm developing and meeting this entrepreneurial desire is I want to work with more entrepreneurs. So I'm working on a new business model that would be designed for entrepreneurs. It would be a combination of personal financial planning and business financial planning. And once we got those fundamental financial in place, the foundation and lined up, the next phase of the relationship would be taking the business to the next level by looking at branding and marketing and social media, and how can we grow the business to further improve the financials. So that's the next aspect, and I'm really excited about that. And that's all I'll say about that at this point, because it's not an advertisement for my firm, but this is just my story. One version of an entrepreneur is being a financial advisor running a financial planning firm. So now that we've covered my personal story, I promise you that the future interviews will be much more entertaining. I've been podcasting for almost a year and a half now, maybe, and it's odd to do one by myself. So future ones will be better. I'll be steering the conversation, but then letting the entrepreneur tell their story and what they're excited about and what their mission is. And I also think that while I want you all to know what I do and learn about my journey, I also want to be very careful about trying not to be advertising my firm, because that's not the point of it. It was just to show one business. And I'll have other financial advisors on that I think have entrepreneurial ways of running their business. So you'll hear from more advisors, because that's my natural network. But I've got a lot of good interviews lined up with other types of businesses. So let's get to the next part of the conversation, which I think might be the most meaningful or most impactful. Maybe not, but I think it might be. I'm going to be asking everybody the same 8 questions and then allow them one shout out. So what I want to have is a consistent series of questions that you'll hear different answers to every week or every episode. It won't be a weekly episode, but every episode. And sometimes it'll be something that you might take away, and other times it may not resonate. Sometimes it may be a tangible, like a piece of technology you might try to use, or it might be that somebody's struggling or struggled with something you're currently struggling with, and you can hear their way through it, or just know that they got through it. So I think that this may be. So let's go to those questions. Question number 1. What's one thing you wish you knew when you were first getting started? I wish when I was first getting started, I understood the value of having processes and having systems in place. The first year, I'd say even the first 2 years of getting RLS Wealth Management up and running was really focused on getting clients over, getting their plans up to date, and getting everything back to normal for everybody that I had been working with, and getting a handful of new clients on just so I was growing. I didn't spend a lot of time working on systems and workflows and having all these processes in place, and I've had to go back later and build those in, which it's always harder to build a system and process after there's a unintended system and process in place, meaning I've been doing things one way, it hasn't been efficient, and now we have to figure out a new way to do it. So I would say day one, wherever you can build out a system or process or put in a series of workflows, do that to streamline the process. And if you do that from the beginning, it'll save you a lot of time later on. And you can always tweak and make some changes to it as you're going. But systems and workflows, because I'm actually 4 years in perfecting those, and it's only because I hired somebody that is tremendous at it, and she actually enjoys doing it. So workflows, systems, whatever you want to call them, processes, put those in sooner rather than later. You'll be thankful for it when you're a few years down the road and you really start hitting growth, because then it's hard to do it. Question number 2, what's the best decision you've made regarding your business? Being the host on a couple of these, I'm going to give you 2 answers because it's my show and I get to do that. The first one I'm going to say is hiring my director of operations, Darlene. So I mentioned implementing workflows and processes now. That is Darlene's project, and she is awesome at it, and she is doing a great job making the business run more efficiently. On top of that, she does a lot of the other things I don't enjoy doing, like the keeping all the records straight and filing everything and follow up and getting everything ready for the next meeting. So basically, I'm getting to the point where I just show up to see my clients and everything is ready. I know they're going to be there because Darlene's arranged everything. So now one of the best things I've done is hired her to help me have more free time and make the business run more efficiently. And I'm excited that come this fall, she's going to be able to work more hours, which means take on more things to free me up to do more things. So that was one. The other thing I think was a very good decision for my journey and my business was deciding and committing to creating content and continuing to do it and evolving with it. So I can honestly say that my growth in my company can be attributed to 2 things: referrals, which everybody wants. I don't care what business you're in, referrals are the best way to grow. And 2 is from my content creation. And then when I say content creation, that's the blog, the podcast, the videos, everything I'm doing to help educate and tell my story and let people know who I am has been very beneficial. And it's been beneficial on multiple fronts. It's been beneficial in that it's yielding new clients. So people coming in, knowing that they want to work with me, having an understanding of who I am as an advisor and a person, and for whatever reason, liking that. And the other thing is it's helped me meet a lot of other professionals that I respect in my profession that are doing tremendous jobs, that have become friends, and they've become people that I could call and grow and learn from. So I never thought that would be a byproduct of it, but just as important of getting new clients, my network of other advisors, investment professionals, marketing professionals that I can call on because I've been creating content and sharing other people's content is insane. I'm just blown away by the people I've had a chance to meet and the people that I know. That's been a big positive from creating content. So those are the two things I think are the best things I've done. Number 3, entrepreneurship is not always all fun and games, and I want to be real and share those and have those stories on there. That's why we're going to highlight struggles and failures as well, because if you look at social media and you look at Instagram, entrepreneurship is easy and it's nothing but money and flying around the world, and that's not the case. It's great, but that's not the way it really is. So the third question is, what's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur or business owner? And to that I say, for me, the hardest part is a little bit of uncertainty. Not knowing, are these changes I'm going to make work? Do I need to make changes? Are my clients happy? There's a lot of things that you don't know and are uncertain, and that is kind of sometimes hard to deal with. But I think that it comes back to having conviction in what I'm doing, pulling from the positive experiences and positive comments that I have to remind me that I am doing the right things, and then just trusting my gut that I'm going to make good decisions. But for me, I think uncertainty of not knowing where's my business going to be in 5 years. I have goals, but I also have shiny object syndrome where I get distracted and want to try other ideas. So do those play out? Do they become a waste of time? Do clients not like that? I don't know. But I'm not going to not try them because of that uncertainty, because I think at the end of the day, as long as I'm living up to my end of the bargain and doing everything I need to be doing for them, and they get what they need and they know they can access me whenever they need me, the other side projects that I do in the evening or in the morning that aren't impacting them won't put any strain on the relationship. But I would say uncertainty is probably one of the harder things to deal with. On the other side of that, I will say that uncertainty also makes this a lot of fun, because you never know what might happen, what opportunities might present themselves. And I also think, like with investing, with more risk comes the opportunity for more reward. I think uncertainty is a risk, but that also is why this path can be so rewarding, regardless of the business you go down. So uncertainty is the hard thing for me. I think for some people, I don't personally experience this, but I think there are some entrepreneurs, especially if they're going at it on their own, being lonely could be an issue. And the answer to that is just finding yourself a good group of people, whether that's like-minded professionals, your family, just finding a support group and people you can lean on. I'll touch on that in a little bit, but I would also say potentially, especially in the early days, loneliness might be an issue as well. Number 4, what's the best piece of advice you've received that's impacted your journey? And for me, I got it a long time ago. It comes from my dad, and it just basically do what's right, take care of others, put other people first, and worry about yourself second, and good things will happen. And I've tried to remember that on all my stops along the way, and it has always paid dividends for me. Going back to the 403B company, I never really paid much mind to the goals that were set out in front of the advisors and the products they wanted us to use. I looked at each relationship with my clients as, I'm going to put together a plan. I'm going to do what's best for them. And I don't care what the company says. And if I do all the right things, then I believe that the chips will fall where they're supposed to be, whether you call it the universe, karma, whatever it might be. I just think that good things will come if I do good things. And it always has. And that is a core belief of mine that starts with what my dad told me, but then experiencing it and seeing it work. You can't convince me any other way. I don't like to focus on numbers too much. I just want to focus on doing what's right. And I have the belief and the conviction that everything will work itself out. It won't always be perfect. There'll be struggles. There'll be tough times. But at the end of the day, doing things right will lead me in the right direction. And I got that advice from my dad a long time ago. All right, number 5. What's one piece of advice you'd offer aspiring entrepreneurs? And 5B is, what is one piece of advice you'd offer entrepreneurs who have already gotten their start? So for new entrepreneurs, those thinking of doing it, or even an entrepreneur maybe trying something new, I would say close the gap. And what I mean by this is not going to be as good for those just listening, but if you're watching the YouTube video, I'll describe it to the listeners. I've got my hands far apart. So when I say close the gap, I mean it's always going to be a leap of faith when you make a change, whether that's starting your own business, changing the business, but there are things that you can do to close that gap. So if this is your leap of faith, it's a pretty big leap. It's going to be hard to make. But if you can take steps, whether it be planning, saving, doing market research, whatever you need to do to make that gap not as far, so that instead of a long leap, it's just a short jump, then you're more likely to make it to the other side and have success. So for my story, when I was at the 403B company, when I thought about going out on my own and wanting to start my own firm, I had over a year's worth of income needs saved. Basically, one of my ways to close my gap was to make sure I had the funds available to ride out my non-compete, to survive and not have to stress and not even touch our emergency fund. So I saved as preparation. So that closed the gap some. And then I did an unofficial survey seeing, did my clients view them as working with me, or did they view them working with the company I worked for? And the people that I cared about the most viewed themselves working with me and didn't care where I was. So knowing that I felt most of my clients would follow me whenever I could take them, and that I had the money to ride that out, that was the gap I needed to close to make the leap possible. And then before I made the leap, I was going to have everything planned out. Now, I told you I changed that plan and I went to work for someone else, but I did the same thing before I left that firm. I had everything lined out. I knew I had clients who would follow me because they'd followed me once. The relationship was me, not with the last firm. And I had everything lined out except for the name of the company on my last day. So I had everything shored up. There was no reason I wasn't going to succeed just because I changed where I was at and started my own firm. Now, that might have been a little bit of a naive way to think about things, but I just felt confident in what I had built with the clients already. I knew everything. There were very few unknowns other than a big surprise if nobody followed me. So I think close that gap by doing as much research ahead of time, business planning, researching, financial planning, doing all those things to make sure you have everything in line before you make that jump. For those who are already on that journey a little bit further along, I would say don't get comfortable. I think one of the reasons I'm so interested in trying to stay ahead of the curve and try new things and grow my business different ways and offer new services is I'm afraid of getting complacent. And I think if I get complacent and I feel too comfortable, then bad things will happen. I don't know what those bad things are. I don't think it'll be clients leave, but I just think it's the business doesn't grow. I lose the social network that I have because I'm not doing these things and staying relevant. Maybe I don't continue to grow as an advisor because I just get comfortable in my ways and don't learn new things. And I think that can apply to a lot of different businesses. If you're a retail business, you're going to have competitors who chase after you. You can get comfortable and they might pass you, or you can use that chase to push you ahead and stay ahead of them and keep you finding new brands or finding new companies. So for those entrepreneurs already along the way, don't try new things just to try new things, but also don't get complacent. Don't be afraid to try new things if it makes sense. And I know that sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but you don't want to just do things just to do it. You want to do it with a purpose, with an intent. So don't just be trying new things to make it seem as if you're not getting complacent. You need to do things that make sense, that you have an interest in, that you're passionate about, that can help your business and stay ahead of the curve. So don't get complacent. Okay, number 6. What's one piece of technology you couldn't live your business life without? For me, it's Twitter. And I know that sounds crazy. I would imagine that most of you would think that I would say, the financial planning software, portfolio management software, research, something like that. But the way I look at it is all of those softwares, I can replace those. There's multiple great financial planning softwares and portfolio management tools, all of those things out there. There's competition and I could replace what I have. I love the systems that I use, but I could find an alternative that would help me do my job. Twitter has been so big for me from a networking standpoint, from a social standpoint, from learning. There's this community on Twitter called FinTwit, Finance Twitter. I don't know if very many other professions have this, but it is very unique in that you have advisors, investment professionals, financial technology companies from all over engaging on this platform, bonding, forging friendships, and then most importantly, sharing ideas and having conversations. And it can become an echo chamber at times, but there's a lot of great information. Honestly, you could get a financial education by following the right and different people on Twitter. So for me, there's no replacement for Twitter. LinkedIn wouldn't do it. Facebook wouldn't do it. Instagram wouldn't do it. That community that I'm a part of on Twitter that I love so much cannot be replaced. And I know for a fact that I'm a better advisor. I'm having opportunities I would never have. I'm getting clients and meeting people I would never have the opportunity to do if it wasn't from Twitter. So for me, the one piece of technology is the app, the program called Twitter. Number 7, what's your time management hack? So I do a lot of different things. The business, the content, family life. How do I make it all happen? And for me, the 2 hacks are doing things during odd hours. So trying to get exercise done early in the morning or later in the evening. I'm very conscious of my health and nutrition and trying to stay in shape. So I make sure that I get my fitness in where it doesn't impact family time. I really try to avoid working out when I could be with my family. So mornings or evenings are when I do that. Doesn't mean it's always that way, but sometimes I have to work out and I bring the boys with me and they'll do a workout with me in the garage. So working out in odd hours. I'm recording this podcast at 11:30 on a Wednesday night. So again, doing this after everybody's gone to bed. My wife's working on her business. So taking care of this on off hours where it's not impacting the main part of my business is my one hack, is being willing to do that and sacrifice TV or listening to podcasts late at night or reading or whatever it might be. This is important to me. This is important for my growth. It's important for me to make this podcast very successful. So I'm willing to stay up a little bit later and not watch the NBA playoffs to be able to record this podcast. The other hack I have is plugging my openings. And what I mean by that is I try to look at my calendar Sunday night and look at what the week ahead holds. And I don't have meetings nonstop back to back every single day. So there are gaps in between meetings or phone calls or appointments or administrative blocks or compliance blocks where I have 30, 45 minutes. And I try to fill those blocks with something. So that might be trying to write, or it might be another phone call with another advisor to just kind of talk about business. I might even squeeze in a 45-minute workout and run over to the gym. But I try to make sure there's not a lot of unaccounted for time on the calendar. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. If a client calls and needs something, the day gets messed up and I move things around. But if everything goes as planned and I have open time on the calendar, I'm going to fill that with something so that way there's no wasted time. And that filling that could also be blocking out some time to relax. I know it. I don't try to make it seem. It may seem like I'm always doing something, and I often am, but I do make time to relax and take a breath and not miss out on being around with my family. So when I'm working nonstop and not wasting a lot of time. When I'm with my family, I'm with my family. So that's my other hack, is to plug those openings, combine that with being okay working odd hours on the unimportant things that don't need to happen during the 9 to 5 hours are my hacks. Number 8, we're almost done. Number 8, what's your secret for getting through tough times or times of doubt? Inevitably, these are going to happen. But for me, it's optimism. I'm a naturally optimistic person. I'm extremely thankful that that's in my DNA and that's the way I'm made up. I don't know how it is that way, but I'm almost too optimistic. And as I've gotten older and I've seen more things in life, I know how to pull in a little bit of realism and be realistic. But optimism and believing in myself is how I get through any times of doubt. So, early on, maybe you don't grow as fast as you think, but if you have a good game plan, you know that what you're doing is right, then I believe it's going to work out. So optimism and believing in myself is how I get through those moments. Another way, if that's not you, and then that's not everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that, we can't control the way our minds work, but if that's not you and you tend to sometimes focus on the negative or get down and stay down, I think the answer to that is having a good support group, good backup. So I mentioned Twitter, but I have a study group I meet with, and I hate that term, but it's a group of advisors. We meet once a month. We're going to meet tomorrow for a couple hours. We have a Slack channel going for that we communicate all the time. I have those people that I know I could call in if I needed to pick me up. I have 2 very close friends I meet with every Friday morning on a Zoom conference. They're in New Jersey and New York. They've become like brothers. They're a support group if I needed it. And I always have my family as well. So if I ever needed it, I have people around me who could help me get through that. But most of the time, I feel pretty confident what I'm doing. And I think the other thing is, and this is very important, I should have led with this, as an entrepreneur, but I think just in life in general, you have to expect that there's going to be tough times. And if you expect there's going to be tough times, then I think when they do happen, it doesn't catch you fully off guard. So when something bad happens, you realize, hey, I knew life was going to throw me a curveball. Here's that curveball. I'm going to process it. I'm going to figure out how to get through it. And I know I'm going to get through it. And then you move through. So I think that's the other thing, is not to be pessimistic and expect bad things to always happen, but just to know they're going to happen and be able to absorb those and roll with them and move forward. So that's the other piece I would say as far as getting through the tough times. Okay, so that is the last question. And now the final thing is to give a shout out. So I want all of my guests to give a proper shout out to somebody who has made a big impact on their journey in their life. So it could be a mentor, could be a friend, could be a spouse, could be a parent, whoever. Give a shout out. And I mentioned that this is my show, so I get to do two. The first one is going to be more of an entity, if you will, and it's going to be family. And specifically, obviously my parents and my sister and all of my family support me, and they're very important in my life. But when it comes to this journey, I have to shout out my wife, Ange, my boys, Roman, Leo, and Silas, for allowing me to take this chance and start a business and do what I'm passionate about and really create a life that I love. I don't think I could make it to be any better. But that didn't mean it didn't come without sacrifice, and that sacrifice hit them as well. So I think about Roman and Leo and Silas, that for a few years, with mom starting her business, which eventually you're going to hear that story, and me starting mine, we didn't take a vacation for a couple of years, which isn't the end of the world. And I know that is a very privileged thing to say, almost elitist type thing to say, and I don't mean it that way. But they're seeing their friends travel and do these things, and we're not doing it. And I don't think they're going to be sad for it, but they didn't get to do those things for a couple of years, and we'll make that up. But there are things that we weren't able to do because time needed to be accounted for the businesses to get going. And, our lives are a little bit different than people who work 9 to 5, and not in a bad way, but just that, mom and dad have business things they need to do in the evenings after they go to bed. And it's just a little bit different than if your work stays at work. So, the boys have been extremely supportive. I love that they're a part of what I do. They're in a lot of my videos, which is pretty cool. And, they seem to like that their dad has their own business and their mom this as well. So the boys have been tremendously supportive. They give me a lot of motivation to work hard and do a good job and build something that they'll be proud of, and maybe one day join me. And then obviously with Ange, she was supportive of me to leave. When I first left the 403B company, I was making extremely good money. We had benefits, 401k match, all these great things that I understand why people stay in the corporate world, but I knew it wasn't for me, and she never second guessed it. And then when I left to start the firm while she had her business and we had 2 young kids, so that we became fully responsible for all of our own income and insurance and everything, she didn't bat an eye. So I am thankful that she was so supportive and backing me when I did that. And then also that she listens to all my ideas as I work through them and I shoot most of them down, but she listens to them. I know it's got to be annoying sometimes. So the immediate family. And on a professional standpoint, there's a lot of people I could highlight, but I think the obvious one for me is my mentor / friend / somebody I look up to and respect very highly, Downtown Josh Brown, who is the CEO of Ritholtz Wealth Management, which is another registered investment advisory firm based in New York. And he has been someone I've followed for a long time and kind of looked up to with the way he conducted himself and the business and what they've done. And before I left to start my firm, I emailed him not expecting to get a response. I had reached out to some other advisors and younger advisors, and they wanted to charge to talk to me. And next day I have an email back, and 2 days later I'm talking to him on the phone. And from there he's been extremely helpful, encouraging, motivating, challenging at the same time on my journey of having my own firm. So I definitely want to give him a shout out and also thank him for becoming a mentor, even though he didn't volunteer. I try to make it from afar, so I'm not too much of a pest, but he's been very generous with his time and his advice over the years. And hopefully somewhere along the line, I've been able to give back to him, because I don't want it to be a one-sided relationship. So if anything, maybe this shout out makes it all even. I doubt it, but I definitely want to shout him out and thank him for everything he's done for me, from the confidence he's instilled, the blueprint he's laid for the way to grow a firm, and just being there to help me and being willing to help me along the way. So family and downtown Josh Brown are the people I want to shout out. And that brings us to the end of the very first episode of the Entrepreneur's Blueprint. I want to thank everybody for staying with me. Like I said, I think that the future ones will be a little bit more dynamic because it's always fun to hear two people talk and not hear my voice all the time. I've gotten pretty good of asking questions and shutting up and letting my guests run. So I want to thank you for making it through this. Hopefully it was a good podcast episode for you. You took something away from it, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these. You can find all the show notes on the entrepreneursblueprint.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, the link will be in the notes. If you're listening to this on iTunes, you can head on over there to check the show notes. And while you're there, you're going to see blog posts, videos, and other things that I'm putting out there. I really want this to be a resource beyond just myself. So when you get to the blog, you're going to see there's videos, there's other people's articles, there's my own content. I don't want it to all just be my story. I want to try to curate a lot of good resources for people who are interested in entrepreneurship and starting their journey or following down their journey. So the entrepreneursblueprint.com is where you can find everything. Be sure to subscribe to the RLS Wealth Management YouTube channel. You can sort through there to just get the entrepreneur stuff, or you can also look at the personal finance stuff if you want as well. And subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And be sure to give some reviews to help this move up the ranks and have more people find it. And you can also reach me on Twitter all the time at Justin Castelli. That's at JUS10CASTELLI. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go to bed so I can get up early tomorrow and start it all over. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.